We should start now. Those
Yes,
who
yes, please start.
right.
Yeah, we should. It's 5 past.
Yes. Abhay, please start.
Okay. So, very good morning to all of you, and we welcome you all to this webinar today, where we're going to talk about design thinking and how it could be used in addressing the challenges that we are facing currently. And I take this opportunity to welcome and introduce Dr. Anbu Rathinavel. He's the head School of Design Thinking, Chief Design Officer at the Intellect Design Arena Ltd. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Anbu. And we look forward to a really exciting, thoughtful session, primarily on design thinking. And just to share with all the participants, I mean, Dr. Anbu's expertise lies in the faculty development, mentoring, design transformation, and also he's been a live design facilitators on many for corporates, for academia and others. In his previous role with the corporates, he has been on a various leadership positions in Polaris Software Labs, Finance Academy, Standard Chartered Bank, also Anna University, to name a few. He is also associated with some esteemed education institutes such as SRM, SSN, as a board member, and ICT Academy. He is also one of the coach for ISB Hyderabad, and he has spoken on various platforms. And it's an honor to have you here, Dr. Anbu, I must say. And we have been thinking a lot about doing a design thinking, but we all thought it would not be appropriate while we don't have you as a process to even think of our design thinking first. And with these words, I welcome you and request you to take us through this very exciting session today. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll can you see my screen now?
Just to inform the participants that this webinar has been organized by the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry along with the IBAC. IBAC is the Innovation and Business Acceleration Center, Government of West Bengal sponsored accelerator program in West Bengal. Over to you, Doctor. Yes, we can see your screen.
See my screen, right? And a slideshow more, right? Okay.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right.
So can you make it full screen?
Full screen. Okay. 1 second. I'll just stop that. Okay. 1 second.
Few ground rules of this webinar. We will have the question answers for the last half an hour, but that is between 12:30 to 1, because this is quite a long session. So, but it's a very, very interesting session. I promise that it would be very useful to all of you. Request everyone to pay attention and be there till the end. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Sujan. So you can see it in full screen now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, good morning, everybody. Good to be connecting with all of you here. And thanks for the opportunity, Sujan. I think it's never been a better occasion or an opportunity or a context to be talking about design thinking than now, right? And what we have been seeing in the past 3-4 months across the globe, and we have seen several things about the pandemic and all that. So don't worry, I'm not going to go into those details at all. But we will go through design thinking, and I will take you through 3 different parts of design thinking. Definitely, just to give you a quick conceptual overview of what it is and how is that we have seen people leveraging design thinking. Then we will also get into a bit of how do we prepare our mindset for disruption, right? And then finally to is there a way I can take as an organization or as an entrepreneur As an MSME, can I take this challenge that's in front of me and how do I convert it into an opportunity? So that's how we will take this journey through for the next 90 minutes or so. So design thinking in our journey as a School of Design Thinking and Intellect Design Arena founded by Arun Jain, we predominantly work on banking products, right? When it comes to banking products, it's always something that we have to be always on our toes, being innovative, trying to be always focusing on what next for the customer and end user rather than what now, right? And that when we were looking at what would help us to be always looking at what next, or if I can say future focused, is when we bumped into what Stanford was going through in terms of design thinking several years ago, 10, 15 years ago, when we bumped into what was happening at Stanford, right? In the name of design thinking as a process for bringing in innovation and creativity. And in our research, then we were looking at how is that one part of the world is succeeding a lot when it comes to be it innovation, creativity, or even disrupting the market, right? Including coming up with products that the customer never thought that they need. And then finally, now they can't imagine a life without that particular product, right? One such thing is definitely the smartphone. Yeah, so we were exploring what is that was making this Silicon Valley in the United States. You know, between three or four companies together, their revenue, yearly revenue, is much larger than the GDP of many big countries in the world, even till date. And how do they do this? And how is that part of the country alone is becoming more and more innovative and disrupting the market across the world than other parts? It's not like we don't have smart people elsewhere, or we don't have talent or expertise or whatnot, right? Or depth of ideas exist everywhere. You know, it's there even in the United States. It's probably there in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., in New York, or take London, or for that matter, Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, anywhere you take, there was dearth of talent. But that one particular section of the community in the world kept on improving and innovating more. And when we went deep into it is when we realized it's probably a culture of trying to think differently. It's a culture, right? Just not a skill. It's a culture allowing us to think differently, a culture that's ensuring that we have more room for innovation and creativity and whatnot. So when we started exploring further, we said, okay, how do we build in that culture here in this part of the world, especially for the business that we were in? And that is how design thinking as a journey started for us, and which is what I wanted to share in terms of the process, the mindset, and how it is applicable to all of you today. So for a second, if you take a good Indian context or an example of Oyo, very common one. We all have heard several stories about Oyo, right? How they have come about to be a very successful and threatening business for hospitality industry itself. How did that start? So Oyo ended up looking at what was the problem for the end user or the customer. What is the actual problem, or what is the pain that my customer is going through, right? Versus any of the other things. So they were saying, they were looking at things like, for example, let's say any of us fly in for an important meeting to another city, right? Or if it's a shorter hop, you take a bus, a coach, a Volvo. You land up at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, your meeting is at 11 o'clock. What do you do for 5 hours? You don't want to sit around in the airport or in the waiting room in a railway station. You want to go fresh for the important meeting. You check into a good hotel, they say 24 hours. Though you will use it only for 2 hours, you pay for 24 hours. So people hesitate to use, not because of the money, but we are always brought up by saying value the money we spend, right? It's not about affordability at all. It was, OYO was looking more into the value system that we were brought up with, right? And that is when they observed so many patterns. And then they talked to a few of the customers or the end users, and then they came up with a model, and now we know rest is history. You can hop in, go take an OYO for 4 hours, freshen up, go fresh for the meeting. Right? How did that happen? Right? Which, in our opinion, happened because of 3 things that OYO possibly applied intuitively. They may not have applied it as a process, right? But intuitively. One is listening. Right? I always say listening is one of the most, or probably the most powerful communication tool we all have at our disposal. By purely listening, there are many things that we can solve. By listening, I'm not just saying hearing what others are saying or your customer end user is saying. By listening, I'm saying understanding what is being stated and understanding what is not being articulated, but the customer is feeling it. Right? There are several words that management gurus will give, from hyper listening to passive to whatnot. But what we are saying is, what is the customer saying? At the same time, what is the customer feeling, behaving when they are saying? Right? By purely listening, there are many things that you will unearth, like exactly how OYO did. Right? And the next one is dialoguing. Right? How do you dialogue with your stakeholders, dialogue with your customers, or even within your team? Right? You are coming up with an idea. Do we dialogue or debate? There is a difference between these two, right? A debate actually helps you to prove who is right. A dialogue helps you to prove what is right. Right? Dialogue's focus is always what is right. And the focus of debate is I am right. So I'm going to go all out and ensure that I'm right. In the due process, you miss out the key things that either your stakeholder or your customer or anyone for that matter who's of importance in that particular context is articulating, we'll miss out. And then we go around trying to solve the problem, and we come up with a great solution, and the problem still exists. Then we try to find reasons to justify why something else was the reason and not your solution, right? And we all know we get into that vicious cycle, right? And the third important element, and we call them, as I said, hygiene factor when it comes to design thinking, is observing. We all observe many things purely out of necessity, right? I mean, take for the current scenario that we are in. We are observing so many things, okay? Suddenly we are seeing who's coming where. Is this person has got a mask? Is this person going to cough, or does this person look healthy or not? But we are observing because of the necessity. And for design thinking, observation should become a habit, right? So let me ask you this question. Now, when you are commuting to your workplace or to your organization, right, you would have been doing this for past several years, same road that you take, be it in your car or in your executive coach buses, or in your two-wheeler, if you prefer that to beat the traffic. You would have been going through the same road, right, day in and day out. And suddenly now you decided you got a huge piece of land, you want to construct a nice house, independent villa with a good landscape and all that, and boom, out of the blue, every other house you start noticing now on your road, on your way to office on the roadside, you say, oh, okay, that house has a good landscape and this house has a nice balcony. And look at the window design. The architecture is better here. The same house existed all those years that you have been commuting that road. Now, out of necessity, because you're going to construct a new house for yourself, you start quickly spotting all of these things. Right? For design thinking to be successful, You should always be observing, because you may never know when your customer end user is going to give you a clue that may just break open everything for you in terms of coming up with a killer product or a service, right? And so listening, dialoguing, and observation. Yeah. So what are the examples of great design? Right? World over, we keep hearing, oh, that's an awesome design, right? There are many examples, right? So we'll just look at a couple of them. I just wanted to give you a little disclaimer. What we have condensed here, right, in this 1.5 hours is what we normally take 3 days to do as a workshop, right? For the faculties or corporate or NGOs and government officials. So we do get into a lot of deliberation, and we will try and condense it and give you a flavor of it, starting with what are the examples of great design. To me, the first thing that comes to my mind is safety pin. Why is it a great design? Because it is so simple. Design does not mean it has to be complicated. Design does not mean it has to have 20 different things. Design means, has it addressed the fundamental problem or the pain area that my customer is facing, which is what the safety pin does. For 170 plus years, the design had never been changed. It was just the same in 1854 or so when they came up with this design, just to put two pieces of things together in a safe way. Believe me, it just stayed that way forever. Of course, people tried it with the different shapes and sizes and colors and metals and little silicone cap on top, so it makes it a little safer for the babies and whatnot. But the fundamental design till date for 170 plus years, folks, stays the same way that it was designed to do. And closer to home, Dabbawala, classic design, right, of one of the greatest design, including, we all know that Harvard Business School descended with the entire team of people to study how is this one particular group can beat Six Sigma by miles, right? They are way ahead of Six Sigma when it comes to margin of error. And remember, they deliver tons of thousands of dabbas day in and day out. And mind you, they do not use, or in other words, their workforce is not highly literate, right, or highly educated. Let me correct myself. They are probably very smart and wiser. So it will be only apt to say they are not highly educated. Probably, if at all, some are lucky to have gone through middle school level. So they accounted for all of these things. And that's why when people started suggesting, and we all know, right, when you get the publicity of doing great things, people come and say, let me help you to improve it, including people suggested, let's come up with a barcode and whatnot. They said no. They have, again, simplicity in their design. A shape, a color, couple of numbers, alphabet, that's all there is to it in each dabba. A shape will refer to a district or a place they pick up from, number would refer to the street in the house and whatnot. And very simple, the dabba gets picked up after you leave our home to office, gets delivered during lunchtime, and the dabba is back before you're back at home. Right? Very simple. Very simple design, and it is working till date with absolute level of accuracy that you can possibly imagine. And the third one, several many years ago, probably what, 2.5 to 3 decades ago, by applying the very thing that I was talking about, dialoguing. This gentleman was in a rickshaw. When he noticed this rickshaw guy, day in and day out, he notices him, and he asked him the question, why is your hair looking so clumsy and not so kept clean? Can't he just buy a shampoo and get it clean? Right? So the dialogue went on into several things, and then it came back, and this The rickshaw puller is supposed to have said, yes, sir, I can do it. If only somebody can give me shampoo for 1 rupee. I don't have money to buy 500 ml bottle, and I don't have place to keep it, and I don't need it. I don't need that much. By just having a beautiful dialogue and listening to what was not said but felt by the end user, Kevin Kerr, the FMCG South India, disrupted the market by coming up with this sachet of 1 rupee. And we all know rest is history. Even today, they're talking about sanitizer sachet. Right? These are all some of the examples of really great designs. Right? So when you look at your products, when you're looking at designing, be it your products, services, whatever the case may be, right, for the business that you are in. I'm sure from the registration that we have seen, your background in terms of your focus area on your, or the domain ranges all the way from agriculture to education to healthcare products to jewelry making, right? A bit of engineering and whatnot. In any of those, when you look at design thinking, the question you need to ask is it human-centered? We always keep hearing be product-centered, be customer-centered, be vendor-centered, and be stakeholder-centered, all of that. The overarching message on top of all these things is, in spite of being centered on any of those parameters, you may still not be able to succeed unless you are human-centered, right? And we will see why that makes a difference. And always future focused. And I mentioned how in our industry of IT and banking, financial sector and insurance, BFSI, how being future focused is the norm for us. We cannot solve the problem, the current problem for the customer. Of course, that has to be addressed, obviously. But we are always racing to see what's next in 6 months to 9 months to 1 year to 2 years, right? And then the other element is my product, service, or whatever solution I'm coming up with, does it create value for the customer? It cannot be just done because it looks fancy, it looks exciting. Yes, you will have takers, but you may have very limited takers. And then you'll be wondering what went wrong in my business. So when we looked at great design, right, I talked about simplicity and whatnot. Right? What are some of the elements of great design? Simplicity, right? Be it a safety pin or the Six Sigma example of Dabbawalas or the shampoo. Simplicity, experience, right? What is the experience my user is going through, right? Remember, your customers, your end users are your biggest ambassadors and salesperson. Therefore, it all starts with what experience that they are going through, and it has to be frictionless, right? Simple thing. How many times, I mean, rare occasions, of course, when you are in a hurry, how many times for many of us would have used a safety pin that we would have got our fingers poked? Very rare, very, very rare, right? It has to be efficient. We saw that with Dabbawala. And complexity reduction, of course, right? Simple. It is not just for the end user, for your team as well. The Dabbawala stakeholders, including their employees, it was so simple for them. And above all, questioning assumptions. Great designs, if you go back, folks, and take a look at great designs that have come out in the world, all of them have always questioned assumptions as to why should some certain things be this way, right? And in history also we see so many examples of having questioned the assumptions, right? And overarching all of these things for design thinking, of course, empathy is like the fiber, the DNA that runs across anything that you do. Empathy, right? That's why in the previous slide you saw human-centered. That comes with empathy. So let me just give you a few examples of what happens when you question assumptions, right? For example, you take a restaurant. Yeah. Our our assumptions is always what? A restaurant will have a menu. You go into a good restaurant, either the menu is in terms of a card, or if it is a fast food chain, like the ones we have in South India, you take Sangeeta, Ananda Bhavan, or Hot Chips or Sarvana Bhavan, you walk in, you see a board with all the menu items, right? That's what we assume. But somebody decided to question that assumption. So there was this startup restaurant equivalent that started in the West, where the chef will declare, these are the 8 different vegetables or 10 different vegetables I have today. Tell me what do you want, we'll make out of it. Okay, but the choice will have to be based on the vegetables I have and the ingredients I have, and that's it. So one of us may decide aloo fry, the other one may decide dum aloo wok, and the other third one will decide aloo gravy, right? But aloo is what I have. So don't ask me for, gobi and other things, because I don't have, right? That is the way they questioned the assumption and disrupted their market. Next questioning assumption example, restaurant. If it is a restaurant, it has to serve food all the time. Somebody said, why? You come in, you bring your own food, okay, enjoy, and by the way, we can provide you some as well, right? It's a good interior. It's like a picnic. You come, real estate space. You pay for using the space, right? We don't serve it. Imagine a restaurant like that, and where all your responsibility of keeping this, that, hygiene, ingredients available, and all that is gone, and you're still running as a restaurant. Charges for the food they serve, right? That's the other assumption. There are restaurants which come in, you go in and say select food is free. Customers are charged on the time spent, and if you want any more fancy food, you order. Yes, we will give you. But otherwise, the select food is free. And it is, you would have noticed this, for some of you who would have visited any of the resto bar for being in a mocktail, or in case for a relaxing cocktail, some of the snacks are free and the cocktail keeps coming, right? You are charged for the cocktail and the snacks are free. So that's a model, right? And though these 3 examples are from the West, come back home. CCD, he questioned the assumption where, why should coffee shop be just a place where someone comes, drinks coffee and goes away? Because when he observed the pattern of usage, people were looking for space to chat while having a cup of coffee. So he came up with this idea of a lot can happen over a cup of coffee, right? So the rest we know, Cafe Coffee Day, we know rest is history, right? They have disrupted the way things happened, and until recently, unfortunately, things have changed now. That is fundamental thing. I'm placing all these examples in front of all of you folks to question the assumption. That's where you will go towards great design, right? So quick rundown, since you're all in different businesses, I don't want you to think, okay, I'm in the business of agricultural jewelry making, so what else can I design? I design my nice jewelry, done. Or an educational thing, I know I'm providing these services, done. But there are many things that we can design, right? This is from our research that we have done, and we constantly keep doing this research as part of our School of Design Thinking work. How has design thinking been intuitively applied all the way back in history of humanity, right? A quick example, founder of Sikhism. We know those days, few centuries ago, right? Mughal invasion was always a threat to that part of the country. So they said, okay, instead of waiting for so many people, let's form. And we call it, that was a crowdsourcing of the current terminology. Guru Gobind Singh said, okay, let me gather people. I wanted the elder son of each family to be given to service for the community. We prepare ourselves to keep the Mughals away from invading our motherland, right? So that was a desirability for the founder, right? he had the desirability. We need to protect ourselves. So we need to create a force for amongst ourselves. And it was feasible for him also because there were elder male in the each family that they could source into and create this community. But what made it, as we call it in design thinking terminology, viable or a successful experience for him was to work on the mindset, where if you look at their name, so he said, okay, you are Param, right? I'm going to add a sing to your name at the end because you're going to fight like a lion, right? So Param, you're going to fight like a lion, so you're Param Singh. When you fight like a lion, you're going to be victorious. Victory is always the only thing that we look for. So I'm going to re-christen your name as Paramjeet Singh. Excuse me. So that is how the name got rechristened. And of course, there are other things in terms of discipline, humility. No matter which class of family you come from, you are made to clean the floor, to polish the shoes, to sit on the floor amongst everybody and eat and all that. But that is how he made it viable, right? Other quick example of this approach, this is from IDEO, which is a spin-off of Stanford's D School of Design Thinking there, Stanford's D School, is if you take a look at alternative energy, everybody desires to keep the environment safer. So given a choice, I would love to have solar power, solar panels helping me to generate more power. Technically, it's possible, especially for the part of the country that myself and my colleague here sit in, hottest, as we call it in Chennai. But do I see solar panels in every rooftop when you land in the airport? Unfortunately, no. Why? Because it is still not viable. High cost, high maintenance, and no, I cannot store the electricity beyond a point, the generated power, right? The next example is Devanagari script, how it was designed so beautifully to use different parts of our mouth. Some are used, some of the letters use the lip to make the sound. Some of them use your tongue, right? Some of them, the tongue has to touch the upper part of your jaw to make that sound. Beautifully designed Devanagari script, right? And many languages. I'm just taking Devanagari script as an example. And this for us is the second one from Roger Martin, who's now earlier Yale, then later to Rotman School, is how do we move mystery to heuristics to creating an algorithm of what you are doing, right? In this case, I'm not talking about algorithm as in software parlance, algorithm as in repeatable, algorithm as in I have become a successful business in Kolkata. Now, how do I start a branch in Chennai? Believe me, you cannot until you come up with an algorithm for your business. You can loosely refer an algorithm to standard operating procedure. For example, McDonald's. McDonald's success is their very strict standard operating procedure. When they started in Southern California, they were hugely successful, one joint. Then they started 3 of them by using heuristics, top of the mind recall. Okay, these are the 10 things we did that made it successful. In the first attempt, let's do the same thing again. And finally, what happened? They didn't know how to go beyond the 4 or 5 joints in Southern California until Ray Kroc, the investment banker, who is not the founder, who took over from the founder, he created an algorithm for McDonald's. And today, McDonald's is all over the world as the most successful, arguably, the fast food chain, with the same service and the same quality of burger to fries to whatnot. That comes out of an algorithm for you. As I said, I kept in our research, we were looking at how did this part of the country, South India, survive with that heavy tropical weather condition. and a huge joint family of 12, 15 people, right? Our research kind of, or our study kind of shows that in a joint family, of course, people have different preferences and whatnot, right? They were, oops. Okay, let me leave it here. And from the health point of view, they were looking at things like, how do we give the healthy combination for kids and things like that. So dal and rice, because we need the carb, the starch, the iron, protein, whatnot that comes in, and you make a batter. We know how that works, right? And they make a batter, huge amount, because it's a joint family. So I come from a family of 13 people, right? Huge family. So they make the batter, they make nice idli. On day one, the idli comes very soft, nice and whatnot. But the fermentation process continues, because these are the days when there were no refrigerator. So the day two, they came up with the idea of making a dosa, right? Day one is idli, day two is dosa. For those of the dosa buffs here, you can quickly find out if the dosa is made out of a freshly made batter or a day-old batter. And day three, the fermentation process continues. It gets even more fermented. They have come up with what's called uttapam, which is offset the feeling of over fermentation is offset with a little bit of sprinkling of onion, tomatoes, and whatnot. And why is this a great example of a design? Quickly, it has released the amount of time a homemaker spends. I'm talking about 3-4 decades ago, where predominantly male went out to earn the bread for the family. Absolutely no gender bias here, but the female ended up being the caretaker of the entire family's needs, right? And so quickly, suddenly, if you look at 1 million women in the southern part of the country, 2 hours a day or even 1 hour a day release, that's 1 million hours free for them to focus on something else. There is still a debate going on amongst many of us, and we are still researching. Could that be one of the reasons why there is a lot more focus of arts in this part of the country? Not that it is not there in other parts. Of course, you take Calcutta or Mumbai or any other place, but there seems to be little more incremental focus when it comes to different types of art, from music to dance to whatnot, in this part of the country. Could be that, right? And so that brings us to the third definition of design thinking, where which is where we have, this is our homegrown approach that we have taken, customized it for how things work in this part of the globe, right? Because I mentioned that design thinking is about the mindset as well, right? So it's about understanding the unstated requirements. In the South Indian food, the women of the house never said, you know what, I need 1 hour to practice my music class every day, so come up with a design that will help me save an hour. No, that was never a stated requirement. That was unstated. Always unstated requirements are the ones that gives you a lot more value, right? When Steve Jobs came up with a smartphone, nobody put a gun to his head and say, come up with a smartphone. That was all unstated requirements. How did he come up with those unstated requirements? When he noticed people, right? And your thick mobile phone, the brick, the Nokia brick, or whatever equivalent, or a BlackBerry, and then an address book separately. And you're juggling between all 4 of them every time you go anywhere. He said, wait a minute. Why should, he questioned the assumption, why should somebody be struggling with things when their sole purpose of taking a vacation is to relax? And we know what happened next, right? And connecting the dots within the box and outside the box. And I'll come to what it means to be outside the box. When you're trying to find a solution, many of the times we are being taught, right, to look at, okay, if I am in an agricultural industry, I look at what is my competitor doing as a solution, what is someone else in agricultural field is doing. What it says as connecting the dots is, okay, you're trying to bring in an awareness to the farmers about organic farming using one of your product, right? Connecting outside the box is, how is the military bringing in awareness of security to their soldiers, right? That's what we are talking about, outside, connecting outside the box, right? Lot of creativity and innovation comes by connecting outside the box. And unearthing blind spots, very, very important and critical, especially when you're coming up with the disruptive solutions, right? Which is, customers don't know what they don't know. It's a complete blind spot for everybody. There are several great examples, including YouTube, iPhone. When iPhone came up with this app where you can record the video and you can automatically upload it to YouTube. No intermediate steps. For those of the people who love to keep posting things in YouTube, right? Great. When they observed patterns, they realized that roughly 5% of the videos were upside down. Consistently 5%. And they couldn't. They were going on figuring out, come on, it can't be, it can't be. And then boom, finally, after several iterations, the blind spot was the app did not account for left-handed users. So left-hand users had their mobile flipped, right? And it was always recording it upside down. Right? Those are the type of blind spot that we are talking about. So these are the 4 key things, please remember. Unstated requirements, observing anti-patterns. Anti-patterns are failure points, pain points, things that are going wrong, right? And connecting outside the box and unearthing the blind spots. Airbnb, right? Unstated requirements of the customers. I want a resort-like feeling, but I can't afford to pay for the resort. But given a choice, I would love to stay in a place that looks like a resort and gives me a homely environment. I don't want to stay in a place where I have to walk through a corridor where doors open both sides and I end up paying 10,000-15,000 rupees for that room. Right? There are people who want it this way, right? That is the trigger point for Airbnb. Anti-patterns. Toothbrush. When several years ago, when they came up with the toothbrush for adults, then they said, why not toothbrush for the kids? Somebody said, okay, simple. We take the same toothbrush, we're going to shorten it. Kids have smaller mouths, right? Shorten it, make the bristles very soft. We're all done. Great. What happened? Launched the product, kids started bleeding. Why? When they went back and started observing, right? Adults hold the brush like this. So the pressure is transformed equally. Kids hold the brush like this, right? So the pressure is transformed to the tip of the brush and they were hitting on the gums and hurting themselves. Then we know they came up with flexible, soft bristles, thicker handle, so the pressure gets translated to the end of the handle than the bristle and whatnot. Arvind Eye Care System, right? Started by Dr. Govindaswamy Venkatappa during his or right after his retirement in southern India. His purpose was very beautiful, overarching, right? Which is something that we need to we will see a little bit later. What is your business? For him, it was eradicating curable blindness. He understood 80% of the blindness across the world could have been cured by early intervention. So he started a model where if you can't afford it, it's done free. If you can afford it, by all means, pay the full fee. That's how it runs, Arvind Eye Care. But the beautiful thing about this as a great example of connecting outside the box, right? When he started for the cataract surgery, which is one of the reasons for blindness in the remote places, right? Not only in India or other developing countries at that time. He said, I wanted to come up with a lens which would cost less than $5. During those days, it was $300+ dollars. Right? Even now, some of the lenses are expensive. And he observed that many people avoid this because they can't afford $300. Right? Even if you have taken those days dollar equivalent 20 rupees or 10 rupees, 300 comes to 3,000 rupees. Those days was a fortune for many people. He said, I wanted to manufacture lens for less than $5 and I want to deliver to 80 countries. So I want a scalable model. So all of his consultants, they said, okay, let's look at what the eye care industry in the US is doing, UK, Australia, whatnot, right? Japan, all big names. He said, no, nothing is working, guys. He decided to take a flight and fly all the way down to California. Do you know where he went? He landed up in the corporate office of McDonald's. He said, I wanted to learn how is that you are able to consistently deliver high quality food across the country the same way. Because I want to do the same thing, except you are delivering burgers and fries. I want to deliver lens. His success is credited with that connecting outside the box. Right? Until date, it's a phenomenal model for Arvind Eye Care. And blind spot. We know classic, beautiful, simple, nice, cost-effective design in the name of Tata Nano. Unfortunately, a big failure. What was their blind spot? Marketing. How did they market? Cheap car. Nobody wanted to associate themselves with a quote-unquote cheap car. Right? Of course it is cheap. Everybody knew. It cost equivalent to your high-end bike or less than your high-end bike. That was the whole message. But it came out saying cheap car. That was a huge blind spot, and unfortunately they couldn't come out of it at all. And we know it's shelved forever. And current situation, until kids in high school in the US came up with observing this anti-patterns and wait a minute, how would people who read lips will survive now when the world is going into this new normal of face mask being part of our accessories? And they came up with a transparent. So that's an example of the blind spot that we are talking about. Only when you go beyond certain things, you'll be able to identify blind spots. So quickly to show you the differentiator when you're stepping into design thinking journey. Traditional thinking will always be, the moment you see a problem, the first question would be, what's the right answer? Right? Especially in a corporate lingo, it's like, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution, come to me with an answer for the problem. We say, keep asking what is the right question. Keep asking questions, question assumptions, ask questions, listen, dialogue, observe. Ask questions, listen, dialogue, observe. More talk, of course. I said more listen. Traditional thinking is all about data. I'm not saying data is not needed. All about data, right? Data shows this, data shows that, which is great. For us, data tells you what the problem is. It cannot tell you why there is a problem. Design thinking tells you why there is a problem. Because design thinking focuses on stories, not the data. Right? Data would say infant mortality in one part of a tribal village up north when they studied. Data showed 60% of a premature babies don't make it. That's the data. Great, people jumped in for a solution. When a bunch of kids from Harvard started studying this as a case study, they landed up on the village. They started documenting the stories. The stories said, out of the 60% of the kids, nearly 20 to 25% of them passed away few meters before the hospital. They could reach the hospital. The data never showed that, but the story did. Right? Therefore, the solution is different. Events to experiences. I mentioned about experiences as part of great design, elements of great design. Throw the facts here. a lip reader and the person is wearing a face mask. What is a feeling that the person goes through when he or she has to be associated with driving a supposedly labeled cheap car, right? That will lead you to a different solution altogether, okay? So I'm going to give you this, what we have come up with, is our copyrighted work of 3 laws of design thinking. Less is more. When you get into business, don't go into too many features, too many choices for the customer, too many products. Apple, classic example, handful of products. Less is more. For those of you who are using Microsoft Excel, many of us don't get to use 90% of the time. We use less than 10% of the features, right? And that's what we are talking about as less is more. Then theory of prioritization. So when you come to adding weightage, we always feel weightage is linear, right? So I will give it as in a ranking weightage, give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 10. These are the 10 things that the customer raised as a pain point. Let's start addressing them. Our experience is no, out of the 10 things, there might be 2 things that the customer is really struggling that would give them 80% comfort. The rest of the 8 things may give only 20% comfort. Imagine you solve 5 out of the 8 things and still wonder why is the customer cribbing because I've addressed 50% of them. Because you have not addressed the 1,000-gram item for them. And so this 10, 100,000 is such a beautiful tool. You can use it for anything in terms of addressing customer complaints, to conflict resolutions, right, to ideas. What are the 1,000-gram ideas you have? 10-gram ideas, great, let's park it. Let's focus on 1,000-gram ideas. Finally, pick the 1,000-gram idea and see what you can do, or 1,000-gram feature that the customer is looking for, what you can do to give 2% equals 200%. Today, in this pandemic situation, there are so many service-oriented industries are really disrupting by giving that last 2%. People are willing to pay more if they are guaranteed that things are coming hygienic, COVID-free, quote unquote, right? So we are talking about the last 2% equals 200% is, you would have done many things for the customer. What is that 1 or 2 things that really nails it for them finally in terms of experience, right? And people are willing to pay more for it. Believe me or not, it's a myth that people will not pay. No, people are willing to pay. If you don't believe me, check with or some of you who may prefer to stay in Oberoi versus another 5-star hotel by paying more money. You will know what I'm talking about as last 2% equals 200% experience-wise. So therefore, when you have an idea, right, what problem are you solving using your idea, right? You come up with an idea. So what problem are you really solving? Are you, solving the actual problem? So let's take a look at, take a blockbuster video of the Western culture or any video rentals that we had a couple of decades ago, right? It was a thriving business. CD rental, DVD rental, Blu-ray rentals. It got killed. Not because somebody else came in. Because these video rentals have ridiculous late fee. So when I rent a video, it will be like, okay, you have to see it in one shot. Otherwise, you're going to pay the same amount again for tomorrow, right? How many times have we you would have rented a video and not being able to see it, or rented a DVD, not being able to see it the same day, you end up paying more. That led to Netflix. While the history will say Netflix killed video rentals, no. Video rentals' inability to evolve themselves out of late fee, evolve themselves out of what they are currently doing, got Netflix to address it. Taxi business, same thing. It got killed. Why? Limited access. You got to wait, wave your hand when you see a taxi, and then fare control. Standard fare from here to there, you pay me a bulk. Otherwise, I won't come. That made Uber kill the taxi business. right? Because Uber did not step out to say, I'm going to kill the taxi business. Uber questioned this assumption. Why should a passenger or a customer have limited access to vehicles? Why can't I step out of my house and decide, okay, I'm not going to walk now, I'm going to take a cab. Let me see if the cab is available. That's what Uber did, right? So if you look at any of these examples, folks, let's not get misled by the fact it was technology that disrupted. No. Technology by itself is not a disruptor in our opinion, but the industries that got killed, they were not customer-centric. That led to Uber, that led to Netflix, that led to Airbnb, that led to iTunes and whatnot, right? So as Steve Jobs famously said, you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to technology. So those of you in the technology business, please don't get into this myth of, I got a great technology, my customers are going to love it. No, please look at customer experience. What is that the customer is experiencing currently? And how am I going to address it using technology? Right? So here quickly I wanted to say what we did was to split design thinking into two bits. One is the design mind, the mindset, right? Design the thinking, which is our copyright work. Unless we prepare the design mind, it is our experience, we found it difficult for people to apply design thinking process. Why? You cannot take a bunch of analytical mind. If you are in an IT industry, let's say, a lot of engineers, software engineers, you cannot take an analytical mind and say, now be human-centered. For an analytical mind today, there are 73 participants as data point in this session. For a design mind, there are 73 human beings wanting to learn and apply. Right? So the moment I put on that hat, my entire approach to this whole session will change. Then we will apply design thinking as a process, right? That has been our success mantra, right? And I can proudly say we are probably the only one around this part of the world who focus on preparing the design mind before we going into design thinking process. There are at times we had challenges with some of our clients. As I said, we work with the corporates, we work with NGO, academics, we work with government officials, we work all the way up to panchayat leaders on applying design thinking. There are some customers who were not aligned with this thinking process, saying that just teach us the process, forget about the design mind. Unfortunately, we had to not get into that engagement with them because we truly believe preparing the design mind is critical for your success, right? Because it is not about just the process, because we see there are drivers of design. We call them SAPIA, as in the color, as an acronym. There are skills and expertise. Skills we know, right? In an IT, Java skills, right? In your agriculture or jewelry, they have skilled laborers that who know what to do. Then we have expertise. You look at agriculture, somebody looks at the weather, somebody looks at the little bit of rain, somebody looks at the crop and say, you know what? I think this is going wrong here. We need to address this. That is expertise. Between these two, you will see results, but will that be enough? No. You have to have perspective. Perspective is the 30,000 feet of your entire ecosystem, right? If you are in doing healthcare products, the perspective is what else is happening around that ecosystem. Only then you will come up with a better idea, folks. That may be very disruptive. Simple example, e-commerce portals existed, online payments and whatnot, 2-3 decades ago. People wanting to buy items out of a mail order catalog existed. Somebody had a perspective of a 30,000 feet saying that, okay, there are ways to pay for it. People who are struggling with mail order catalog, can I put them together in the name of Amazon? The rest we know the world's way of habit of shopping has changed forever. That's all Jeff Bezos did, right? He just connected these two pieces together with an idea. And finally, alignment to what am I actually solving for the customer. So these are the 5 drivers as we see for growth or design. And there are frictional forces, which is very, very critical. In spite of having great knowledge about design thinking, there are organizations will still run into challenges in terms of applying, right? And we know for a fact about 3 years ago, one of the big industries in India decided to train all their employees on design thinking process, right? So they just got vendors or consultants to train all the employees in the next 3 months. Some tons and thousands of them. System went into a confusing spin to an extent that the board questioned, could that be one of the reasons why their revenue plummeted down? Right? Because they missed the part that you have to prepare the mind conducive enough for them to apply design thinking. And that's where these frictional forces, we call them as decaf, as a decaffeinated coffee. Doubts in the minds of people, including your brainstorming team, your creative teams, doubts in the minds of people. Am I doing the right thing? You know, am I even supposed to come up with ideas sitting here? Then conflict. Identifying that the conflict comes out of difference of opinion, difference of perspective, and difference of expectations. We saw perspective, right? What you are seeing, you might be seeing one forest, your team member will be seeing another forest. You have to identify and understand that there is a conflict and address that conflict. How do you address it? Through dialogue. We talked about that, right? Through dialoguing, you address that conflict. Then third, of course, we all know, right? Several occasions that we have faced. One simple occasion is when they say your flight is cancelled in the airport, right? You go and shout at the lady who was about to check your boarding pass to let you in, as if she made the decision to cancel the flight that should have flown from Chennai to Mumbai to take you from Mumbai to Delhi, right? We show anger because of helplessness, right? The opposite of that is get into acceptance. Then the fear, very important thing, fear of going wrong, fear of failure, or fear of even the unknown, right? That constrains the creative mind when you have that fear. That's why we call it frictional forces. To have courage and go through. Then finally, ego, right? Which is something that we keep seeing everywhere when we do workshops. Unfortunately, the leader of the gang says, guys, I know it all. This is what we are going to do. No. Humility is important, right? So it is doubt, conflict, anger, fear, and ego. Frictional forces should be there. We are not saying completely remove it, right? Certain times, a bit of fear makes people to be more aggressive in getting it done. But be aware that these forces exist and how do you address them, right? Then capacity levers, as we call it, right? When the sepia and decaf works back and forth, right? As a seesaw, what are the capacity levers? Vulnerability. How do I get myself out of the comfort zone? Right? For those of you in the MSME entrepreneur journey, you know you have already gone out of the comfort zone. And vulnerable zone is where you get to access your 10x thinking, believe me or not. When you are most vulnerable is when you are pacing and thinking so many things. For example, you move from one city to another. Most vulnerable period, right? First 3 months. You're pacing, you're thinking more, you're finding the best place for the school, to best place to stay, to what's the safest area, what's the safest time to venture out and whatnot, right? Appreciation, we don't have to say more. Every time you appreciate, 10x capacity increases. Limiting beliefs in the minds of people. It could be just your team member, it should be a group of people in your team, or it can even be you. I am just in this business, I am doing something here in this part of the country, in this part of the state, for example, in West Bengal. Fine, I can't expand beyond this. I can't, this is all I can do. Right? The moment you think that way, you're done. I'll give you a quick example for paucity of time. I'm also mindful of the time. Quick example of limiting belief. Those of you would have seen elephant in the temple, right? More predominantly in the southern part, right? Huge elephant. We keep reading once in a while bizarre stories of how an elephant uprooted a tree or knocked off a huge 32-wheeler truck and whatnot, right? Or went on a rampage through a village, killing people. And on the other side, you see the elephant tied to a pole with a rope in its leg. And it won't move that leg at all. Why? The first thing that the mahout does when the elephant is born, excuse me, is to tie the leg. The first thing that happens is to tie the leg. And if you closely watch in some of the temples, the rope is not tied to the pillar also. There will be just a loose rope around, and there will be the mahout's son or a little one getting trained to be in that journey. He'll have a little stick and he will be ordering the elephant, saying, hey, do this, do that. Elephant cannot move that leg. That's a limiting belief, conditioned mind of the elephant right from the day it was born. Same way, several parameters can condition our mind, especially if you are in a journey of entrepreneurship, MSME journey. Why? MSME is a category name given. That doesn't mean you cannot grow it into multi-crore business. We have seen several MSMEs that grow into multi-crore business because they were willing to step out of their comfort zone. They don't have any limiting beliefs, right? If you have limiting beliefs, your capacity gets pulled down by 10x, folks. And that's why I'm saying, please work on it and get out if at all there is a limiting belief. Simple example for those of us who would have gone through this ourselves, or we do that to our kids, right? Or some of the teachers, unfortunately. If there are any teachers in this group, pardon me, who keep telling the students, you know what? Goner, you can never be good in mathematics. Believe me, that kid will never be good in mathematics. That's how we condition the minds of the kids, right? So just be mindful of these three things we call as value capacitor levers, VAL, right? So in your business now, coming to the third part of how do I address my business and how do I take the challenges into opportunities, there is a choice that you have to be either market driven. So many people are doing this and there is plenty more. You want to be market driven. Great. We are not saying no. There is business in that. Or you also have a choice of driving the market, which is what Arvind Eye Care did, which is what iPhone did, which is what Tesla did, which is what Patanjali tried, right? There are so many people who are there with an idea. They want to drive the market, not that their business is driven by the market, right? That choice is yours, no matter how small or big your organization or the business size is, right? So how do we, when we come to some of the tools, I just wanted to leave a couple of tools with you. Of course, as I said, I wanted to give the disclaimer again that, excuse me, a bit of a bad throat today. Like I said, I know we have condensed whatever we did in 3 days into this 1.5 hours. There is a tool that we use called persona. How well have you understood your customer, end user, or for that matter, your partner or your key stakeholder? Let's say in an MSME business, you wanted to get an approval through the system. How well have you understood the key stakeholders' persona? Here's a simple template, right? What's the background of the person? What are the challenges the person faces? The end user, let's say, what are the aspirations and motivations of the end user? Accordingly, your product design to your service level processes to your marketing message and pricing, everything can change if only you just do this quick mapping. A typical persona workshop takes anywhere from half a day to 2 days, but it doesn't hurt to just come up with a quick, very quick persona mapping, especially if your customers. This could be, it doesn't have to be a single person. You can take a persona of a cluster of customers and say, what are their doubts and fears? How are they associating themselves with the society, with your product, without your services, with your services? What are they aspiring to be, right? Here is an example. two different products from the same place. Ren, Hindustan Unilever. They came up with a Ren for a middle class. The advertisement, to keep yourself clean. I want to show myself bright, white, striking. You will see the girl walks, the lady walks, and then there is lightning coming in. She looks bright, white. Go back to the persona. That is her aspiration. I wanted to show myself as a clean, crisp, striking, white, fresh person when I walk around, because it makes me feel great. Same thing on to the right side, Surf Excel, for possibly little more than a middle to a upper middle class to an upper class family. It's okay to get dirty, kid. Surf Excel is there now. It's okay to get dirty. See, that's a two different cluster personas, and two of them are huge business. And that's what we are talking about. If you go and say that sell the same rent to the upper class, saying that would you like to look brighter and whiter and strike a pose with the society, they'll say, wait a minute, I'm already there. I don't need your product to make me look any better, right? But you go to them saying that, okay, you got dirty, your kids got dirty, that's okay. Surf Excel is there to fix it. So that is what, if you take a step back and see, is there a two different segment of customers, consumers for the product and service that you're working on? Could there possibly be two different messaging, packaging, and whatnot, which we will see quickly a little later, right? So the question then is, I did mention about, I have a great idea, therefore, I'm coming up with a product that the customers will have to buy, right? My colleague who's a senior faculty in School of Design Thinking, Ramakrishnan, he will always used to say, just because I have a hammer, that I'm not going to go around saying that everything has to be a nail, because I have a hammer, right? So the same way, if I have just because I have an idea, I'm not going to convert it into a product and say, that is my passion. It's great, it's a trigger. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's a trigger. But are you solving the customer's real pain? Are you solving the actual problem of the customer, right? So here, a quick example of, some of you would have bumped into this, and many of us they use only Google nowadays, not Yahoo. In the days when Yahoo was ruling, Yahoo search engine, this is how Yahoo search engine looks. And later Google came up with the one on the right side. When Yahoo came up with this, and it slapped all the arts, news, business, advertisements, everything. And people will patiently wait until everything loads, then your search will start, right? And when Google came up, and this is something that the story documented by the Google founders themselves, they, in the first few weeks, they had so many complaints saying that your search engine is not working, it is not loading properly. They said, what do you mean it's not loading? It just gives Google and then one box. There is nothing else. There is no advertisement, there is no news, nothing coming up. And they said, no, nothing will come up because nothing is there. They were like, why? He said, wait a minute. Your problem statement is what? You want to search, right? Search. So there is a text box. Click, enter, search. Why are you looking for news? If you want news, search for news. Because I'm passionate about saying this is how it should look like, because I missed the fact that there are a section of customers, if they are like me, especially when I go subscribe to a page by paying tons of money, I always question, why am I seeing advertisement? I don't want to see advertisements. I'm paying for your service. So show me either what I like or don't show me anything, right? So somebody was passionate saying, I'm going to pack everything and give so many things to the screen versus Google. So relate back to how it translates to your design of your product or service that you are embarking on, right? And this is also a classic example of less is more. Google worked with less is more. If you want to search, I'm just going to give you a search window. That's it, right? And that leads to, am I solving the actual problem? Okay, many times we think think this is the problem, but it is not. Many solutions world over, including after having spent millions of dollars or rupees or pounds or whatever currency you want to take, folks, would have realized the problem still exists after we have come up with a solution. Why? They could have possibly started on solving a symptom and not a problem. Very simple. We go to a doctor with a headache. The doctor keeps on giving you a headache tablet, painkiller. It'll go away for a second. It comes back again. Then you go to a specialist. We talked about expertise, right? You go to the expert. He or she will check you out thoroughly and say, you know what? You have a problem with your stomach that leads to a headache. I'm going to give you a tablet for your stomach for a week. That will knock off the headache. So that doctor has actually solved the actual problem, not the symptom, which was the headache. How do you do that? We have another tool in design thinking that we use. And by the way, we use about 15 different tools. I'm just showcasing a couple of them here for your benefit. Some of you are in the engineering business here. So we thought that we will place an engineering example. We've been talking about agriculture, jewelries and whatnot, healthcare, right? So there was a situation where in a welding shop, a welder burnt herself during her work. Right? And people said, wait a minute, why did that happen? Right? They asked a question. We call this the classic. It is borrowed from Toyota, the 5 whys, right? Why did that happen? She wasn't wearing the protective gear. What would have been the immediate solution? Okay, policy says she has to wear a protective gear. Tell her the next time she doesn't wear and she gets hurt, we're going to penalize her. There'll be a disciplinary action, right? But somebody said, let's ask a question. Why wasn't she wearing? Because the room was very hot. Why is the room hot? Because the air conditioner was broken. Why? Because there was a problem with the electric socket. So the problem is with the electric socket. That is why the welder is not wearing. Not that she doesn't know or he doesn't know that protective gear is a strict policy rule guidelines, safety measures. This is what happens when you start asking this question of 5 whys, right? So coming to the last part of, therefore, how do I turn challenges into opportunities, or how do I leverage constraints? World over, many examples of constraints having leveraged into opportunities we know. Outside of product and services for the cricket fans, the great Muttaya Muralidharan. He had a challenge with his elbow that I can never be a cricketer. This elbow challenge I have and convert it into an opportunity. And the rest is history. If he did, world would have missed out on one of the greatest bowler ever to play or don the uniform of cricket, right? So for all of you, there is always an opportunity, right? Okay, when COVID situation, when people thought that, okay, people are not going to order and restaurants are shutting down, Swiggy is out. Swiggy said, okay, what do I have great? I know delivery. My ecosystem can deliver. Instead of food, I'm going to deliver something else. So they went back to asking few fundamental questions, right? So I'll give you an example of Honda. So we call this as shifting the focus dot, right? Honda several years ago, probably a couple of decades ago, when they were talking about fuel efficiency war, right? Every automobile industry was going through this war, right? People were saying, okay, my vehicle can do. Honda realized, wait a minute, this is a glass ceiling. We cannot go beyond whatever. You can't go to 100, 150 kilometers a liter. They went into a brainstorming. And in the brainstorming, one of the persons, right, asked this question: what are we trying to do? Is it fuel efficiency or is it energy efficiency? And everybody was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Fuel is an energy. So are we talking about energy efficiency then? And this is what we call as shifting the dot from fuel to energy. And that's it. That led to ideas such as hybrid engine, both the electric fuel, recycling exhaust energy when the car is idle in a stoplight, or even coming up with a technology that will know how to fire a 6-cylinder engine, 4 of them when I am in the city, 6 of them when I am on the highway. right? Same way, Swiggy shifted the dot from delivering food to delivery, right? So that brings you to the question of, for all of you to ask, if we want to place with you or leave it with you, the 5 levers for your business growth. What business are you in? Am I in the business of increasing more productivity for agriculture through an app or a solution? Or am I increasing the livelihood of the farmer? It's a 2 different things. The moment you look at productivity, you are going in one direction. Your trajectory is to this direction. The moment you say, I'm doing increasing the livelihood, your trajectory goes this way. You may never know where it will lead in terms of your partnership, your promotion, to your success, to your revenue growth, to your investment and whatnot. We worked with an organization which was giving loan for students who are going abroad. Right? When one of our co-founders was coaching them after the workshop, through series of questions, coaching questions and asking, but going deeper into assumptions, he found out they do provide loan, but what they do is they place the kids in the country, foreign country, they put them in support of with their local ecosystem of similar country, similar Indian ecosystem there. They provide them healthcare opportunities and whatnot. So I said, wait a minute, you are not in the business of loan. If you are in the business of loan, big giants like SBI, HDFC and others will come and eat you alive. You are in the business of foreign student placement. And that shift in the dot increased their revenue in the next 2 years phenomenally, and later HDFC bought them over because they liked that model. And that was a model that was not there with HDFC, right? They were giving foreign education loan, but this was a different business. So go back to the whiteboard with your team, keep asking multiple questions. This is some things that we do with some of the startups. We do a lot of workshop with startups where we keep asking questions. We actually will annoy, and to an extent they were like, wait a minute, where did I land up in this whole thing? What business are you? What business are you? What business are you? And it will lead to a lot of blind spots for yourself. So please go back to your team and spend some time asking for what business are you in? Who is your competitor? Right? It's a no-brainer. Who is your competitor? Okay. I am with Swiggy. Okay. Is Zomato my competitor? Yeah. Swiggy is delivering, Zomato is delivering. Zomato is my competitor. No. Swiggy went beyond and said, no, Amazon is my competitor. Right? I have started in high school, or I have started a coaching unit. Right? Some of you are in education, right? Coaching unit. Who is my competitor? Another coaching center? Could be, if you are looking at it very superficially. But your competitor could be Baijo. Right? Not today, tomorrow. Blockbuster never thought technology was ever a competitor until Netflix came and threw them out of business. So your competitor, please look at who are your competitor outside of that immediate competitor, as in I have a healthcare product, my immediate competitor, someone else who has the same healthcare product. No. Right? Please always look at much beyond your current circle to see your competitor. Like I said, for Swiggy, it's Amazon. Right? For a training institute could be Baijo or somebody else completely. Right? Third one is, how do you package the product? This is something that we have seen in our research, and absolutely no offense meant, or we are not making a biased statement. I think there is a lot we can learn from the Western culture. They are masters of marketing and packaging. Okay. At one point in time, there was somebody who came up with the concept of, I spent about 12 years in the US, right, which is where I did my doctorate. Then I was working with for a US Navy organization on e-commerce project. There was somebody who came up with a pet rock and packaged it so nicely. Phenomenal business. He scooped up tons of dollars. He packaged it. Pet rock is what? It's just a rock. a pebble that you will see on the roadside. He packaged it so beautifully, and kids fell in love, especially kids who don't have friends and they feel lonely, they fell in love. That is the key of packaging, and it is worth spending some time and money as well in packaging the product. One of the favorite stores for me, of course, is Fab India. I go there not because of their collection, because they are helping the otherwise dying artisans across the country, right? They work, their purpose is to revive the artisan industries, right, which is fast dying in the country. Their beauty is packaging. You buy the same fashion jewelry, right, in another store from the same artisan group in an exhibition. It will be in a plastic wrap thrown there, right? And accordingly, the prices will be. And you go and look at the same thing in a nice boxed way in a Fab India, which will cost you at least 10 to 15 times more. Believe me, people buy it, right? It's the packaging, because packaging uplifts the image of your product. Packaging starts attracting your customers to you, more customers to you. Packaging gives more respect to your product. The self-image, the aura around whatever words you want to use for your product increases, right, with packaging. We worked with one self-help group down south in a Kanjipuram district. They were making millet laddus. Beautiful millet laddus, hygienic, healthy, organic. The person who was doing this, she had gone down south and learned through expert in Ayurvedic combination for 5 days workshop, came back and started doing this millet laddus. And when we want to try this out for some of our corporate groups, the packaging they brought in was, because for them, they felt the product will sell, not the packaging. So we spent some time to help them understand how packaging can happen. It's a round laddus, right, of the size of a Ferrero Rocher chocolate. So the next round of conversation dialogue we had with them about packaging, we picked up a 36 piece of Ferrero Rocher and showed them here. This packaging costs 1,200 rupees in the market, and their laddu was 15 rupees a piece, or no, 12 rupees a piece. So they took inspiration from this and came up with a better box with the slots for the laddu and whatnot, with a little sticker saying which laddu is what, and then a little placard to say what is the health benefit of these millets. Boom. Their product picked up because people like the packaging, because packaging tells a story about your product, friends, or the services for that matter. And how can you leverage the marketing channels? Just not technology. I said earlier, your customer is your biggest salesperson, right? How can you leverage the marketing channels? Technology is a big one. Digital marketing, especially in the current situation, is even bigger. But word of mouth, even including pamphlets. I told you about this millet laddus. The pamphlet they came up was, for them, the content was more important than the look and feel. The look and feel speaks a lot more about your product, and therefore it becomes a sales tool, right? A customer should be proud of using your product that they can go and tell 20 other people, right? Until it picks up. And how are you designing the pricing model? Could there be different pricing for different things? We have seen shops that says expert quality shirts on sale, and the pricing is higher because it's export quality, right? And the classic thing about pricing, I'll give you 2 examples. One, when Baiju started, we've been closely watching Baiju because many of us in School of Design Thinking, our passion is academics as well, right? We work a lot with college students, faculties, and kids, school kids also. So how are they dealing with it, right? So earlier they were just saying buy a module of algebra by paying so much. Then they realized in algebra there is one subsection that kids are not comfortable with. And why can't I price it saying, if you're not comfortable with that particular thing, you don't have to pay for the entire package. Just buy that study. And that disrupted. We know they are more than $1 billion organization today. Another pricing model, for those of you in South India, I'm sure it happens in the other part of the country as well. I used to go to Sarvana Bhavan, and I don't want to buy everything. I love the South Indian sambar to whatnot. Many of us do, right? I mean, not to get you hungry now. I know we are getting closer in on lunchtime, but so Sarvana Bhavan, after observing this, they came up with this thing of, okay, you don't have to come and buy an entire meal, which will cost you $150, and you will not use half of it, right? I don't like their rice has soda, baking soda, and all that. I just love their sambar and rasam, right? For a family of 4, myself, wife, 2 kids, and we go buy, spend less than 100 rupees and just buy sambar and rasam from them. That was their pricing model. In fact, at one point in time in the place where I stayed, the Sarvana Bhavan, to buy these extra items, right, used to be much more crowded than the meal section. But he made more revenue out of this. And that is what we are talking about as different pricing. There are opportunities to disrupt the market in your respective area through pricing model also, right? So these are the 5 levers that we thought we will leave with you, right? Just please go back, and of course we will share this presentation as well with Sujoy. Please go back and ask these questions. Spend some time with your team. What business are you in? Especially, who is my competitor? Not the current one, not the one that you see as next door doing the same product. No, go beyond that. Go beyond that to see who is my competitor, and are there ways that I can package and market it, and then finally the pricing model. I think this in itself would be a great thing for you, because there are plenty of opportunities. The moment you start looking at this, you start differentiating yourself. Our organization works with the GEM portal, right? The government e-marketplace that Honorable Prime Minister started, which many of you would know, 20 or 25% of the sellers are earmarked for MSMEs. Right? You can go check their portal for more details. There, if you go and say, let's say, sellers across the country, there, how do I price it will get you more benefit. And believe me, today, the channel to sell and market through a portal like GEM is just completely disrupted. You can sit in one part of the country, Kolkata, and sell all the way down to Kanyakumari or Trivandrum. Or you can sit in Andaman and sell for somebody in Delhi, right? All that comes out of your packaging, messaging, and pricing model, folks, right? So we wanted to leave that with you, and here is an opportunity you can go ahead and download this book for free, written by our founder of School of Design Thinking, Mr. Ralist, and Lifetime Achievement Awardee of Design Thinking application in the country. This book, for a limited time for participants, we are leaving it for free. One of my colleagues will put the link in the chat box as well. Sorry, we'll share the link with Sujay also. So that's all I had to share with you today, folks. Okay, over to you, Sujoy.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Dr. Anbu?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for this excellent presentation. I told everyone that this will be very interesting and very intriguing, and lots to learn from this. Whenever you start a business, or when you are in the process of your business, if you apply this design thinking methodology, you would program yourself to success. So I have a few questions from the participants that I would like to put forward. The first one is from Mr. Shubham. His question is, can we incorporate design thinking in B2B marketing?
Yes. Design thinking is applicable anywhere. It is not restrictive. And so since you have asked this question, Shubham, I'll also give a disclaimer. Design thinking is where you apply when you face a wicked problem. Design thinking should not be applied when there is a straightforward solution, right? It's like, if I had to give a very simple, lukewarm example, okay, I ran out of something at home, what should I do? Just go buy it. You don't need to think twice. But a data shows between B2B, business to business, that you are facing certain challenges. A data shows that you are facing certain challenge. But can I find out why is that a challenge? You apply design thinking. And by saying applying design thinking, you don't have to necessarily apply the entire process. You can apply some of the tools. When it comes to B2B, definitely understanding the persona of your stakeholders will help to leverage better. Right? That is one quick thing. And then, of course, mapping out the ecosystem. We have a L0, L1, L2 framework that we do as one of the tools, where you map out an entire ecosystem of your B2B, and you'll see where can I add more value, therefore there is more revenue for me. Yeah.
The next question is from Madhumita. Please explain the polarization theory.
What is the polarization theory?
I think whether was it in the slide?
There was no polarization. If you could just clarify what exactly are the slide that you are referring to, we can come back to that question then.
Okay, so if Madhumita, if you are there, if you can retype the question, we will take it forward. The next question is from Mr. Showman. He has two questions. How to build a design mind when time is very short and we need to deliver the minimal viable product in 2 months. This is one. And second one is that what are the design thinking tools currently available in the market?
Okay. So the first question is, that's a classic question. It's at least I remember being asked 30 years or plus of my career, especially in the software industry. You know, it all started saying, I don't have time to design and all that. You're giving me requirement. I'm going to jump in and start coding because there are only 2 months left. Right. But preparing the mind for looking at a situation differently is very critical. The 2 months, let's say you have a deliverable in 2 months, right? When the mindset of people shifts to asking questions, fundamental questions, questioning assumptions, looking at or having a perspective of what I'm solving for the customer and all that, believe me, even 1 month is more than enough time for you to solve the problem. We can share some details later with you or through Sujoy. What we have done is one of the examples, we have delivered a software product to a customer in Canada 40 days ahead of the promised schedule with single digit post UAT defects. And now it has become a huge relationship for us because the CIO said, we never thought anybody could deliver. Why? Because we just applied certain design thinking tools, but again, preparing that mindset. Right? And we always say innovation comes out of crisis. Many innovation comes out of crisis. Hard to believe, but that has been the case many times, right? So 2 months, yes. And this is something that we keep hearing everywhere when we run this thing. Time is of essence. I cannot do this. And we always relate back to saying that there is no time, so I cannot design a proper product. I'm just going to start developing it, right? So we have to step back and prepare the mind, and that's an investment you have to make and take that chance.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next
and
is,
on the tools, right? Sorry. So you had asked for tools.
Yes.
So the two of the tools. So it all depends on. There are several people. If you go and search in Google design thinking in India, there are several people who take design thinking as a concept approach to teach. We have few tools, and like the two of them that I have shared with you. If your question is there a software tool that help you to do all of these things? No. If anybody says, in my personal opinion, if anybody says I have a software tool that will help you to apply design thinking, please be cautious before you jump into it, because it takes the human-centered approach out when the moment you become dependent on a software to solve that problem. But yes, there are some tools like Persona, 5Wise, L0, L1, L2 that we apply. We apply another one called Journey Map, right, which kind of helps to see what journey my user is experiencing, the ups and downs of the journey, right?
The next question is from Ankita Chaudhary. He's asking, how can we develop a design thinking culture in the student community in the new normal?
Okay. All right. So this is a very interesting question in a new normal, right? This new normal, yeah, we didn't expect, but we knew what we are following right now was always there, right? Whenever we talk to faculties during this time, we always end up asking them the question, the very technology that they wanted to be banned from classes is the only technology that is helping them to continue the show, right? So we knew gadgets are going to stay forever in the name of phone and iPads and laptops and all that, right? And we knew online learning is a choice that has been there for several years, and organizations or even academics, colleges, universities have been asking go online for some of this. It is just that now this disruption pushed us into this, right? Luckily, we are surviving. My only concern is had we had worked on it little earlier as a choice, not by force, things would have been different. Coming back to the core of your question in the new normal, how do I bring in this mindset? First is to accept that this is going to stay forever. This is our opinion. This model is going to stay forever, even including post-pandemic. By the time we get back to normalcy, hopefully sooner than later, the ecosystem would have got used to the comfort, right? They would have got used to the comfort and there would be productivity. Of course, there are teething trouble. I'm sure some of you would have read the recent one from NUS Singapore. Homework, right? Lab homework by students because everybody has gone online across the world, right? They ran it through plagiarism software. Tons of students have been marked, including in their academic records, because they copied. Right? Those hiccups and pitfalls will be there. But the mindset more before the student for the faculty is you're going to teach not face-to-face all the time. You're going to teach looking at the machine. You're going to teach through your video recorded modules. The face-to-face time, the luxury of face-to-face time being your only delivery model is probably not going to be there for long or forever, if I may take that risk of saying. Therefore, the mindset of the students is, I'm going to learn through interacting with my teacher across, right? So that's a mindset of learning. Coming to the question of mindset of design thinking is, first, and again, it starts with the faculty, right? Remember, I said questioning assumptions. The design thinking mind starts with allowing the students to question, right? We do run 2-credit, 3-credit course for some of the colleges and universities. Right? First thing that we teach there for the students is you're free to ask any question. Right? And that's where the design thinking mindset starts for the students, because by asking a lot of questions, they get more clarity. As faculty, we should be willing to get into that mode of let them question me. Right? That's a start. But of course, you can get to our website also. You'll see more details on how the student mindset is. There are some cases and some details as well, d-thinking.com. That'll give you more details. Yeah. Sujay, you're on mute.
Yeah. So you talked about conducting different interviews while coming on to the design thinking. So is it okay to use our own experience to interpret and understand others' experiences?
Okay, you can use your own experience to start with. I wouldn't say let's just use our own experience alone, assuming you are saying that your own experience about the end user. It's a good start. But we always say there is another tool called empathy map, right? It's very easy at the same time difficult to empathize with the end user. We always say get into the shoes of the person. No, you become that person. When you become that end user, imagine you have developed an app. Become that user. If it is a 65-year-old person using an app, right? How would that person experience? When the moment you become that user, then you will know what experience that they are going in. You may even start questioning your own experience, because our experiences comes with a filter on, unfortunately, right? because it's several factors that biases us registering experiences. In Google interview, at a very senior level interviews, after, of course, we all know about Google's intense interview, I think the 11th or the 12th round of interview, I am told that they will ask, how will you sell Android to a 65-year-old person? Imagine that. Unless you have become that 65-year-old, I don't see how you will crack that, right? So that's why in design thinking, we also say it is not about the problem. It is about the person who is facing the problem. You hear the problem, note it, keep it aside, then go to the person who is facing the problem. That will give you a lot more clarity.
That's a question from my side. So, at what point do the real constraints such as budgets come into the process while designing?
Okay. So your question is what point, Sujo?
When we are applying design thinking to a process, the budgets will come in. So at what point do we keep this? And what are the limitations of this?
Okay. So from our experience, there is absolutely no limitations to how and when and where you can apply design thinking. But you have to be mindful that because I have a hammer that everything is going to be a nail. No. Right? Because I have design thinking, I'm going to apply it everywhere. No. But in terms of budget, see, this is probably one of the very least expensive way because it is all in the mind, Suja. Right? It is all in the mind. Of course, if you may choose to hire a consultant to help you through the entire journey, or you may choose to hire a consultant to train people at the beginning, right? Or coach. There are various models that all over the world people are following. That expense will be there. But beyond that, almost all tools are always like this, paper-based tools or a quick, back of the palm cheat sheet that you follow 10 steps, right? Quickly looking at empathy map, when a customer is expressing something, what is the pain that the customer is going through, all of that. So budget should not be a constraint. Time can seemingly be a constraint, but actually in our experience, it's not. It is about how much you want to solve the actual problem. Imagine for paucity of time, you end up running into solving a problem without applying design thinking of 5 whys and identifying the right problem. Imagine after the end of 2 months, you fall flat, right? Because you haven't solved the actual problem. So that could be the challenge, but not the budget.
A question from Amit Kumar Nandi. What are the aspects of design thinking paradigm in the manufacturing automation sector?
Okay. So, automation is a very interesting thing, right? This is something that we are working with as well. 2 things. I'll give you about an example that kind of was driving the automobile industry up and down about 6-9 months back, and also the current situation, right? One is when automobile industry, especially the sales plummeted down, right? We all thought that is this the end of this whole, journey and things like that. We went into a bit of a research to see what was going on. The same time when people were not buying new cars, people were saying it is because of Uber, Ola, and all of these things that automobile industry is taking hit. But people were buying used cars. So it is what possibly could have gone wrong with automobile industry is we call it as a siloed approach, right? There was automobile industry in terms of siloed pricing. There is an insurance industry that was running siloed, right? And then there was this financial sector that was giving loan in a siloed way. People couldn't have all these 3 things got together and applied a little bit of a journey map for what the end user is going. All 3 would have benefited. Because people were not buying automobiles, banking sector got a hit because people are not taking loan. Therefore, insurance sector got hit because people are not buying insurance. Right? That is one way we call it as a Rembrandt situation. Imagine 3 different stages of Rembrandt not looking at each other, looking away from each other. Right? So that is one thing in automobile. And coming to this current pandemic situation as well, where people are saying how dependent can we be in with China and things like that. right? It's just talking about, I'm working with a couple of my friends who are in automobile industry, right? Manufacturing per se. They are talking about how can we remove our dependency or reduce our dependency, whatever. So applying design thinking and mapping out the entire landscape of your business. We call that again L0, L1, L2. Entire landscape of your business. You'll be surprised to see there are some dependencies that we have created which don't have to be a dependency at all. It might have just become a dependency for no reason at all, not even cost arbitrage. There are some which are cost arbitrage. China can get it better, or any Taiwan or any other country, just not China, any other country for that matter, right? So that is one way of applying design thinking, going about how do I identify the constraints around mapping a landscape. Therefore, of course, product design itself. My question is, when the same automobile industry could quickly design inverters and other things, right, by using a jugaad in this pandemic, and I'm sure we could come up with a better design as well in manufacturing. Yeah.
Quite an interesting question, I feel. It's from Mr. Sudeep. Could you please suggest me some exercises to do every day to develop the design thinking mindset within us?
Interesting. Very interesting. Sudeep, okay. Very profound question, Sudeep. Let me tell you what I was doing and I am still doing. Right? You go back to that frictional forces, Sudeep. Doubt, conflict, anger, fear, ego. Right? We feel that is the crux of a design mind. Right? When I have doubt about something, or when I have a conflict or a ego, I will go outright to prove somebody wrong. And all human beings are gifted with that judgmental and argumentative or debating capability to prove ourselves correct. Right? So what I do end of the day, every day, especially during this situation of work from home and all that, is I go back and quickly do a journal for myself, Sudeep. Where did I have a conflict today? Could it be in my head or with my team members or some of the other stakeholders? Was there a conflicting situation? I write it down, and possibly I won't find an answer, because human mind is such that it is not going to give an answer. Right? So I note that down. Or is there a situation where I had fear today? Right? It could be related to pandemic. It could be related to anything else. And did I prove myself right, knowing very well that I could have been wrong? That's ego. Right? So I kind of keep journaling this every day. So that's a good start, I would say, to kind of start conditioning ourselves to saying, it is all about saying, I had a conflicting day today. I think to me, that's a success. To identify and acknowledge I had a conflict, I had a fear, and I showed my ego today. And that's a good start. By the way, brilliant question.
We have time for one or two more questions.
Sure.
So the next one is, how do we best transfer the knowledge gained by those who are following the customer to the technology team?
How do we transfer the knowledge?
Gained by those who are associated with the customer to the technology team.
Okay. Okay, good. I mean, this is a big challenge, right? This also goes back to that, imagine the Rembrandt picture, right? So the customer team is separate, the technology team is separate, and then on top of it, there is a quality team that is separate, right? So what we have succeeded is we follow what is called the apprenticeship model, where there are a couple of technology people who become part of the customer team as well, being there, right? And the other one we follow is clearly the co-creation. Co-creation is one big approach that you can follow when it comes to designing stage, applying design thinking, is bringing in different teams. When we do a lot of workshops for our customers, when we do workshops, we insist that the marketing head has to be there, the CIO has to be there, CTO has to be there, the quality and the risk officers have to be there. Right? This kind of breaks the silo, and then they are together. I know there may not be possibility of physical opportunity for them to be together, but again, given this current thing of virtual thing really picking up as opportunity to interact, you should have a co-creation rather than downloading, right? So in other words, when the technology team is embarking on a designing stage, bring in the customer team to be part of the design stage itself, rather than a handover.
Next question is that can you build a persona at a higher level, like a group of people instead of one people?
Absolutely. So persona can be, that's what we call it as a cluster persona. Persona can be an individual. Let's say you are making a presentation to get 20 crore approval for your idea. Map out the persona of the decision maker. This is not manipulation, by the way. Don't mistake it. This is about understanding the person's aspiration, motivation, fears, doubts, background challenges, and all that, and addressing it. Right? That is at an individual level. So your storytelling and script will be according to that. Yeah. Instead of going and saying that, okay, I have a great idea. This is what it is. Give me 20 crores. Instead going and saying, you know what? I remember you mentioning, all of this have to be fact. Go to the supervisor or the stakeholder decision maker. I remember you mentioning in that meeting about this as your strategic agenda for next 3 years. And I bumped into this particular thing as an idea, which I feel will add value to your strategic journey. Can we discuss? Right? The person will say, okay, tell me what's going on. Right? That is how the individual persona works. And yes, the group persona, Rin is a classic example. It is a persona of the middle class family. What is the motivation? What's the fear? What is their aspiration? Middle class family's aspiration is to be accepted, right, in the society. Therefore, what will I do? So that's a cluster. So you can do it an individual, team persona, customer cluster persona, persona of an entire society, right? So constantly our team always keeps bouncing off thoughts, what could have been better in a COVID situation, the lockdown in India versus Italy to whatnot, right? There is a persona for the state of Tamil Nadu. There is a persona for Maharashtra. There is a persona for Karnataka, persona for West Bengal. And then there is a persona for India as a community, right? So it is completely possible, doable, and it is a must. Right? We call them the cluster personas. You're on mute, Sujoy.
I think there are no further questions. So I would like to thank, okay, there is one more question from Abhay. What is the relationship between design and craft? How do we integrate for art-based enterprises? What should be the indicators we should work on?
Okay, so art as in consumable art, I'm assuming as a product consumable art, right? See, design thinking is what? It helps you to come up with a jugaad, right? It helps you to come up with, in certain situations, a quick solution. For craft, okay? I will give you an example. Right, I picked up something from, if I'm not mistaken, I think it is the Bangalore airport. When I went with my colleague, we did a workshop for a corporate there. 3 of us went, and we had enough time because in Bangalore you have to rush to the airport 3 hours before the flight and all that, right? So there was this one art store which was selling earring set which was made of wild rice. Right, which is made of processed wild rice, and that caught my attention. And then I didn't know about this before at all. He had only one piece, and he said that this is fast moving. I was like, how can this be fast moving? So I was chatting with him. He said, you know what, sir? Because people like it. One, it is wild rice, and it is something that is designed by villagers, tribal people, artisan, and it is so attractive. Of course, the packaging and all that, right? I brought it home and my wife loved it. Then she said, no, this is a huge artisan that is dying, and boy, I'm glad you bought it. So going back to your question, Abhay, is, which is where you apply this question of what am I trying to do by designing this craft? Is it a consumable that is going to stay in every craft store? Then it is a very simple design. Would you want a design thinking to be applied? Maybe not. But I want this to be one of those fine artisan, promoting artisan to the culture, to the values, to the tradition of this thing. Apply design thinking by asking questions, right? In a process, we say divergence, coming up with multiple ideas. Why should somebody buy it? Who is your market segment, right? Then do you do a persona for that market segment? Believe me, people will really love it, because there are people whom you kind of touch their heart by designing certain things for them. And that's where I think design thinking comes in, because it's the journey map and what are you trying to address for those people. You take Patanjali. Patanjali sells Ayurvedic product like many people. What did he do? He came up with Desi choice, Swadeshi, Desi choice and chemical-free product. And that got it. Right? That is about understanding the persona of the users, right? So that is where you can apply some part of the design thinking for it.
I think we come to the end of this webinar. I thank you, Dr. Anbu, for your immense contribution to this, and also to Mr. Ramakrishnan, who helped us in the entire process of designing this webinar and going through it. So thanks a lot. And I'll let Abhay take over now to give his concluding remarks.
I would just like to add on to what Sujay said. I mean, it was really enlightening for all of us to hear you and take us through at least the nuances of design thinking and how we can possibly integrate at the very initial stage of our business or the product development per se. I mean, I have been looking at the chat box as well. There are lots of people who are saying that, is there YouTube link to what you have said or shared? How do we get the presentation? So this probably is a success outcome of this particular webinar and your discussion, and we are really thankful for you to at least have started so that, I mean, we were able to start thinking on design thinking right now. And I'm sure, I mean, we reach out again back to you to see how we can have a follow-up webinar on this, and maybe on a sector specific with certain focus, depending upon what you perceive that we should be going to look into in the next webinar. And really appreciate, sir, and really appreciate the entire effort of yours, and also Ramki. A big thumbs up to both of you. We learned quite a bit, and we look forward to keep engaging and learning more from you. Thank you. Big thanks from Vicky and IBAC team. We look forward to meet more often and learn more.
Surely. Thank you, Abhijit. I think that was, thanks for arranging this and giving us opportunity. Definitely. So we can definitely do many things. I see design thinking as a good opportunity to especially work with MSME sectors and others to make the product look great. Definitely. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you, Sujoy. Sincerely appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks to the participants as well.
Yes, thank you all.
Back to you with the next webinars and in more details. And of course, we'll share the PPT and the videos as well. It will be up on our website as well. So you can look at IBAC website. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day and stay safe.